The video showed my wife dancing with three men I'd never seen before, her hand on someone's chest, laughing in a way I hadn't heard in months. The caption read, "Girls Trip Energy," with a timestamp from last weekend. The weekend she said they were doing wine tastings and spa treatments. I'm about to show you what happened when I started digging into my wife's group trips, and why I'm now sitting across from a lawyer discussing defamation, invasion of privacy, and something called intentional infliction of emotional distress. My name is Marcus. I'm 34, work in cybersecurity, married to Laura for 6 years. We met in grad school, built what I thought was a solid life together. No kids yet, both career-focused, the kind of couple that splits bills down the middle and plans vacations using shared spreadsheets. Everything made sense on paper. Laura started doing these group trips about 8 months ago. Her college friends had reconnected through social media, decided they needed regular girls' weekends to maintain their friendship. Made perfect sense. I encouraged it, actually. Told her she should go, have fun, take a break from our routine. The first trip was Nashville. 4 women, 3 days. Lots of photos of Broadway bars and hot chicken restaurants. Laura came home exhausted but happy. Then Miami, then Charleston, then Austin. Always the same group, always 3 days. Always returning with stories about brunch spots and local attractions, and how much they laughed about old college memories. I had zero concerns until her phone buzzed during dinner 3 weeks ago. She was in the bathroom. The notification lit up the screen face up on the table. A message from someone named Brittany in a group chat called Trip Planning Committee. The preview showed, "Delete all the club videos before Marcus sees them, especially the ones from Saturday night." My stomach dropped in a way I wasn't prepared for. When Laura came back, I didn't mention it. Probably should have. Instead, I did what any cybersecurity professional with trust issues would do. I started investigating. Not my proudest moment, but I'm way past caring about that now. I began with her cloud storage. We'd set up family sharing years ago for photo backups, something we'd both forgotten about until it became the key to everything. Scrolling through her camera roll from the last trip to Scottsdale revealed a completely different narrative than the one she'd told me over dinner that week. The spa day? Didn't happen. What did happen was a pool party at someone's house with at least 20 people I didn't recognize. The quiet dinner at that restaurant she'd recommended. Actually a nightclub where the videos showed bottle service, dancing, and Laura wearing a dress I'd never seen before. A dress that probably cost what we usually spend on groceries for a month. But that wasn't even the disturbing part. The disturbing part was the consistency of the deception. Every trip had 2 sets of photos. The ones she showed me, carefully curated shots of tourist activities and innocent fun. And the ones in her hidden album. The real trip. The one that involved entirely different venues and entirely different people. I'm not talking about cheating. Not yet, anyway. I'm talking about a parallel life I knew nothing about. A version of my wife who apparently clubs until 3 in the morning, takes shots with strangers, and participates in activities that would make our carefully constructed budget spreadsheets look ridiculous. The men in the videos weren't necessarily romantic interests. They were just there. Part of this world she'd built that had nothing to do with our marriage. But the lying. The elaborate, consistent, months-long lying. That's what made my hands shake as I scrolled through photo after photo of a life I wasn't part of. I spent 4 days deciding what to do. Confront her directly, hire a private investigator, pretend I never saw anything. Each option felt wrong for different reasons. Then Brittany, apparently Laura's closest friend in this group, posted a TikTok that changed everything. The video showed highlights from their last trip. Quick cuts of the group getting ready, heading out, dancing, laughing. Standard influencer content. Except there in the background of one shot, barely visible for 2 seconds, was Laura. And she wasn't just dancing. She was kissing someone. A guy in a black shirt whose face I couldn't quite make out because of the angle and the lighting. The video had 47,000 views when I found it. The comments were full of people celebrating girls' trip energy and asking where they got their outfits. Nobody knew these were married women. Nobody knew I existed. I screen recorded everything. downloaded every photo from her cloud storage, created a timeline of each trip with corresponding evidence of where she actually was versus where she told me she'd been. This is what 6 years of cybersecurity training prepares you for, apparently. Building an airtight case against your own wife. When I finally confronted Laura, I didn't yell, didn't cry, just opened my laptop and showed her the folder labeled Evidence. Watched her face cycle through confusion, recognition, fear, and finally something I didn't expect, anger. She was angry at me. For invading her privacy, for tracking her movements, for saving photos from her personal cloud storage without permission, as if the 6 months of systematic lying were somehow less significant than my 1 week of investigation. That conversation ended with her moving into our guest room and calling her lawyer. Not a divorce attorney. Her lawyer. Because apparently what I'd done, the way I'd gathered this information, might actually be illegal. And that's when this story stopped being about a cheating wife and started being about something much more complicated. The lawsuit papers arrived 5 days later, and suddenly I'm the one being accused. Laura's attorney specialized in digital privacy law. That detail should have told me everything I needed to know about how prepared she'd been for this moment. The lawsuit claimed I'd violated Illinois Eavesdropping Act by accessing her cloud storage without consent, that I'd committed identity theft by using her login credentials, that I'd invaded her privacy in ways that constituted harassment under state law. Each charge carried potential criminal penalties. Each one transformed me from betrayed husband into criminal defendant. This is insane, I told my own attorney, Marcus Webb, during our first meeting. She's suing me for discovering her affair. Marcus didn't look surprised. She's suing you for how you discovered it, and legally she might have a case. See, here's what nobody tells you about catching a cheating spouse in the digital age. The evidence that proves infidelity might be obtained in ways that violate wiretapping laws, computer fraud statutes, or privacy regulations. Courts don't care that your motives were pure. They care that you accessed someone else's accounts without authorization. The Illinois Eavesdropping Act is particularly brutal. Recording someone without their consent, even your own spouse, can result in felony charges. And accessing someone's cloud storage? That potentially violates the Computer Fraud and Abuse Act at the federal level. I'd spent 1 week gathering evidence. Laura's legal team spent 3 weeks building a counteroffensive that positioned her as the victim. Her version of events, laid out in the lawsuit, was masterful fiction. According to Laura, these trips were therapeutic. Time away from a controlling husband who monitored her every movement and questioned her every decision. The separate photo albums. A way to maintain boundaries and privacy in a marriage where I'd become increasingly possessive and paranoid. The kiss in Brittany's video. A moment of weakness with an old college friend. Nothing more. A single lapse in judgment that didn't constitute an affair and certainly didn't justify my illegal surveillance. She painted herself as a woman trying to maintain some independence while married to someone who'd transformed her phone and laptop into monitoring devices. Someone who'd violated her trust by accessing her private files. The worst part? Her narrative was effective. Our mutual friends started asking questions. Why had I been so secretive about the evidence gathering? Why hadn't I just asked Laura about the trips if I was concerned? Normal people talk to their spouses. Normal people don't build folders labeled evidence and document everything like they're preparing for trial. Marcus reviewed everything I'd collected. The good news is you have proof of infidelity. That helps in divorce proceedings, especially regarding asset division. And the bad news? The bad news is how you got it might overshadow what it shows. Illinois allows for at-fault divorce, but judges don't look kindly on illegal surveillance, even between spouses. If her attorney can convince the court that you violated her privacy rights, it could impact everything from spousal support to division of assets. I hadn't considered that possibility, that proving Laura's infidelity might somehow work against me because I'd used the wrong methods. So what should I have done? I asked. Just trusted my gut and filed for divorce without evidence? You should have hired a private investigator, Marcus said. Licensed professionals who know how to gather information legally. Or you could have simply confronted her and filed based on the breakdown of the marriage. No-fault divorce doesn't require proof of infidelity. But I'd wanted proof. Wanted documentation. Wanted to know I wasn't crazy for suspecting something was wrong. That desire for certainty was now costing me $15,000 in legal fees and counting. The preliminary hearing happened on a Thursday. Laura arrived with her attorney and 2 witnesses. One was Brittany, who testified that I'd always been jealous and controlling, that Laura had confided in her about my behavior months before these trips started. The other witness was Laura's therapist. Her therapist confirmed that Laura had been seeking treatment for anxiety related to marital stress, that she'd discussed feeling suffocated in our relationship, that these trips were part of a recommended strategy for maintaining her mental health. None of this was true. Or rather, it was all technically true but completely divorced from context. Yes, I'd asked questions about her trips. Yes, I'd noticed she was distant. Yes, our marriage had stress. Because she was lying to me constantly and I could sense something was wrong. But presented in court, filtered through the lens of Laura's narrative, I sounded like a controlling husband who'd driven his wife to seek escape through girls' trips, and then punished her for that escape by illegally monitoring her digital life. Marcus did his best during cross-examination, got Brittany to admit she'd known about the kiss, got the therapist to acknowledge that Laura had never specifically mentioned infidelity in their sessions, got Laura's attorney to concede that accessing shared devices isn't typically considered unauthorized access. But the damage was done. The judge ruled that the evidence I'd gathered was admissible in divorce proceedings, but that Laura's privacy lawsuit could proceed, meaning I'd be fighting 2 legal battles simultaneously. The divorce, where I'd argue she'd been unfaithful and deceptive, and the privacy suit, where I'd defend accessing information she'd deliberately hidden. This is going to get expensive, Marcus told me afterward, and ugly. He didn't know the half of it. Because that night I received an email from an address I didn't recognize. The subject line read, "You're looking at the wrong evidence." Inside was a single attachment, a video file dated 3 months before Laura's first girls' trip, before any of this started, before I thought our marriage had problems at all. I clicked the attachment. The video player opened, showing our living room from an angle I recognized immediately. Our security camera. The one we'd installed after a break-in scare in the neighborhood 2 years ago. The timestamp showed February 14th, Valentine's Day, 3 months before Laura's first supposed girls' trip. I'd been working late that night, remembered coming home to find Laura already asleep, but she hadn't been asleep when this video was recorded. The footage showed Laura on our couch, with someone, a man I didn't recognize, younger than me, well-dressed. They were laughing, drinking wine, sitting close enough that their intentions were obvious. Then they were kissing. Then his hands were under her shirt. Then she was leading him down the hallway toward our bedroom. The video cut off there, but the implications were clear. Laura hadn't started cheating during these girls' trips. She'd been cheating long before that. The trips weren't the beginning of her infidelity. They were just a more convenient cover story. I sat there in my apartment, staring at the screen, my hands shaking. Someone had sent me footage from my own security camera. Footage I'd never reviewed because I'd had no reason to suspect anything that early in the year. Who sent this? And what else did they have? The anonymous email had no identifying information. I tried responding but got an automatic bounce back. Dead end. I forwarded the video to Marcus immediately. Called him at 11 p.m., knowing he'd be annoyed but not caring. "Please tell me you didn't hack something else," were his first words. "Someone sent this to me," I said, "from our home security system. Dated 3 months before the trip started." Silence on the other end while he watched. Then a low whistle. "This changes things," Marcus said carefully. "If we can authenticate this footage, it establishes a pattern of infidelity that predates everything she's claiming about your controlling behavior. It undermines her entire narrative." But there was a problem. Our security system automatically deleted footage after 30 days unless manually saved. This video shouldn't exist anymore. Someone had accessed our system, saved this specific footage, and held onto it for months. "We need to find out who sent this," Marcus said. "Because if they accessed your security system without authorization, we can't use this evidence either. It's the same problem as the iCloud access." I wanted to scream. I had video proof of Laura's infidelity, months before any of her claims about my behavior, and I might not be able to use it because someone else had obtained it illegally. "Unless," Marcus said slowly, "you saved this footage yourself and forgot about it." I understood what he was suggesting. Claim I'd reviewed the security footage back in February, noticed something suspicious, and saved it. Then forgotten about it until this anonymous reminder. "That's lying," I said. "That's legal strategy," Marcus corrected. "Look, I'm not telling you what to do, but if you genuinely don't know who sent this, and if you genuinely do own that security system and have legal access to its footage, then who's to say you didn't save this months ago? Who's to say except me and my conscience, and the fact that I'd be committing perjury if I testified to something I knew wasn't true?" I told Marcus I'd think about it. Hung up and stared at the video for another hour. The man in the footage looked familiar somehow. Not someone I knew personally, but someone I'd seen before. Where? I started scrolling through Laura's social media, looking at photos from the past year. Her work events, her friend group, casual snapshots she'd posted. There, tagged in a photo from her company's holiday party last December. Great night with the marketing team. The man from the video was in the background, holding a drink, talking to someone I didn't recognize. I checked the tag. Ryan Mitchell, marketing director at Laura's firm, not a random stranger. Her co-worker. Someone she saw every single day. Someone who had access to her schedule, knew when I'd be working late, could coordinate with her easily. The trips hadn't been about getting away. They'd been about establishing an alibi, creating a narrative where her infidelity started recently, during innocent girls' weekends that went wrong, when in reality she'd been carrying on an affair with a co-worker for at least 6 months, probably longer. And someone knew about it. Someone had saved that security footage deliberately. Someone wanted me to have this information now, during the divorce proceedings. But who? And why wait until now to send it? I went back to the anonymous email, examining every detail. The address was a random string of numbers and letters at a generic email provider, but the message itself had metadata. I opened the file properties, looking for anything that might identify the sender. The video had been exported from our security system's app on March 2nd, 3 weeks after it was recorded, by a user account I didn't recognize. Someone had accessed our security system while Laura and I were still together, still pretending everything was fine, had watched that footage, had saved it, had waited months to send it to me at precisely the moment it would do maximum damage to Laura's legal strategy. This wasn't random. This was planned. Someone had been watching our marriage implode and collecting evidence the entire time. The question was whether that someone was trying to help me or destroy both of us. I spent the next 48 hours becoming someone I didn't recognize. Someone who breaks into email accounts and traces digital footprints like a private investigator with nothing left to lose. Laura's laptop was still in the guest room where she'd left it during one of her belongings pickups. She'd been sloppy, probably assumed I wouldn't touch it. I booted it up. Her email was still logged in. Searching Ryan Mitchell's name produced 847 messages, the earliest from 14 months ago. Professional at first. Meeting notes, project discussions, then subtle shifts. Great presentation today became, "You looked great today." Thanks for staying late became, "Wish we didn't have to leave." By month 4, they weren't even trying to hide it. "Can't wait for this weekend. Tell Jordan you're at that conference. My place or the usual hotel? Delete this after reading." She hadn't deleted any of them. Lazy, arrogant, or maybe deep down she wanted to get caught. I found the security system access logs next. Someone using Laura's login credentials had downloaded footage on March 2nd at 11:47 p.m., while Laura was supposedly at her sister's house for the weekend. Someone else had been in our home, using her computer, accessing our cameras. The pieces started assembling themselves. Ryan Mitchell wasn't just Laura's affair partner. He'd been her accomplice in constructing this entire narrative. They'd planned the divorce timeline together, coordinated their story, made sure everything pointed to a recent mistake rather than prolonged betrayal. But they'd made one critical error. They'd trusted someone who knew the truth. I went back through Laura's messages, searching for anything about that weekend in March. Found it in a thread with her best friend, Monica Hayes. "Mon, I need your help. Jordan's working overnight Friday. Can you cover for me if he asks? Say we're doing a girls' weekend at your cabin?" Monica's response was ice cold. "This is the 4th time you've asked me to lie for you, Laura. I'm done. What you're doing to Jordan is cruel, and I won't be part of it anymore." Laura had written back immediately. "Please, I'll explain everything. It's not what you think." Monica never responded. That was March 1st. The footage was downloaded March 2nd. Monica Hayes had access to our house, had cat sat for us dozens of times over the years, knew our security system password because we'd given it to her. She'd saved that footage. She'd waited until the divorce got ugly, and then she'd sent it to me, not to destroy Laura, to give me the truth Laura had refused to provide. I called Monica that afternoon. She answered on the 3rd ring. "Jordan, I was wondering when you'd figure it out." No pretense, no denial, just tired resignation. "How long have you known?" I asked. "About Ryan? 10 months. I saw them together at a restaurant downtown. Laura made me promise not to tell you, said she'd end it, said it was just a mistake." Monica's voice cracked. "She didn't end it. She got better at hiding it. Why wait until now to send me the footage? Because I thought she'd do the right thing during the divorce. I thought she'd be honest about why the marriage fell apart. Instead, she's painting herself as the victim, claiming you drove her away through neglect. That's not what happened, and you deserve to know that. The footage might not be admissible in court. My lawyer says there are chain of custody issues." Monica laughed bitterly. "I don't care about the legal system, Jordan. I care that you know the truth. What you do with that information is your choice." We talked for another hour. She told me about conversations Laura had shared, plans they'd made, lies they'd constructed. Ryan was going to leave his wife once the divorce was final. They'd already looked at apartments together, had discussed which furniture from my house Laura would take. My marriage hadn't fallen apart. It had been systematically dismantled by 2 people who wanted different lives and saw me as an obstacle rather than a human being. That night, I made my decision. I sent the footage to Marcus with a detailed explanation of how I'd obtained it. Included Monica's contact information. Told him to use whatever he could legally and ethically use. Then I did something that surprised even me. I forwarded the entire email chain between Laura and Ryan to her lawyer with a simple message. "Discovery works both ways. My attorney will be filing an amended response Monday morning. I suggest you discuss settlement terms with your client before this becomes public record." Laura called 20 minutes later, crying, begging, explaining. None of it mattered anymore. "I trusted you," I said quietly. "For 8 years, I trusted you completely. That was real, Laura. Whatever we had, whatever you threw away, my part was real. Please, we can fix this." "There's nothing left to fix. You didn't just cheat. You constructed an elaborate lie designed to destroy me financially and emotionally. You used our friends as accomplices. You rehearsed your victim story while planning your next life with someone else." "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." "I believe you're sorry you got caught. That's not the same thing." I hung up, blocked her number, sat in the silence of the house we'd built together and felt something shift. Not healing, not closure, just clarity. The divorce settled 2 weeks later. Laura got far less than she'd demanded. Ryan's wife filed for divorce the day after the footage went public in legal filings. Monica and I stayed friends. Some betrayals clarify exactly who deserves your trust. The anonymous email had done exactly what it was meant to do. Not destroy my ex-wife. Just reveal who she'd always been underneath the performance, and sometimes that's the only justice that matters. I learned something crucial through all of this. The evidence didn't matter as much as I thought it would. The videos, the messages, the proof of Laura's systematic deception. What mattered was understanding that some people will rewrite history to justify their choices, and no amount of documentation changes that. Marcus told me later that most divorce cases like mine never see a courtroom. They settle quietly because nobody wants their dirty laundry examined under oath. Laura's lawsuit against me was dropped as part of the settlement. She got to avoid having Ryan testify about their timeline. I got to avoid potential criminal charges for how I'd gathered evidence. We both got to pretend we'd won something. The truth is messier than any legal outcome. Laura probably believed her own narrative by the end. That I'd been controlling, that she'd been suffocating, that the affair was a symptom rather than a choice. People are remarkably good at constructing stories that absolve them of responsibility. I'm not innocent in all this either. I violated her privacy, broke into her accounts, became someone I didn't recognize in pursuit of proof I didn't technically need. The law doesn't care about your justifications, and maybe it shouldn't. But here's what I know now. If your gut tells you something's wrong, it probably is. And you have a choice in that moment. You can either trust your instincts and leave, or you can go looking for evidence and risk becoming the villain in someone else's story. I chose evidence. I'd probably choose differently now. Not because I regret knowing the truth, but because the truth didn't give me what I thought it would. It didn't make the betrayal hurt less. It didn't explain why someone who promised forever decided 6 months was enough. It just gave me data points to obsess over at 3 in the morning. Monica was right about one thing. The legal system doesn't care about emotional truth. It cares about what you can prove and how you proved it. In the end, I had all the proof in the world, and it barely mattered. What mattered was accepting that the person I married had made choices I'd never understand, that she'd built a parallel life I wasn't part of, that our marriage had ended long before either of us filed papers. The girls' trips were just the excuse. The lawsuit was just theater. The real story was simpler and sadder than any of the legal drama suggested. 2 people who promised forever discovered they wanted different things, and one of them lacked the courage to say so honestly. I'm rebuilding now. Different apartment, different routines, different expectations about what trust actually means, and I'm okay with that. Not happy, not healed, but okay. Because the alternative is spending the rest of my life wondering what I could have done differently, what signs I missed, what evidence I should have gathered. And that's not living. That's just collecting data points about a life that's already over.
Question time. So what would you do if you found yourself in this situation? Let us know in the comments.